Hello, I'm Shieldwall100 and welcome back to my channel and the mean streets of Gotham for another Batman Miniatures game 3rd edition report. Today's battle, confrontation, whatever you want to call it, will be between the Soldiers of Fortune crew, led by Bane in this instance, and a Organised Crime crew, led by none other than the Ventriloquist Arnold Wesker. Organised Crime can have several different leaders, well, as can Soldiers of Fortune, but yes, there seems to be a lot more for Organised Crime these days. And yes, Arnold Wesker is one I haven't used yet. The Ventriloquist is quite an unusual type for them, because he, out of all the leaders, I think he's the only one who doesn't bring any additional funding to the pool at the moment. So yes, he has to make do with the North standard $1,500, which can run out quite quickly in this game because you've got access to a lot of firearms. Yeah, it's going to be interesting as well, because today is the first time I'm actually using the new official Night Models approved Organised Crime deck, as opposed to my bootleg thrown together unofficial one that I made myself. Got the whole bunch, got most of the decks are now through there on their website, available for download. There's a card pack which is currently on its way towards me, I hope, and with all the decks in, refreshed and retranslated, etc. I'll go into that more when it arrives. I'll probably do a little quick critique on it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it performs. I'm very much liking the look of the cards and some of their little quirks for the way the crew works nowadays. I will get onto that in the course of the game and when I do crew selection. And speaking of which, let's see who's in which crew. Okay, starting with the Soldiers of Fortune, and there he is, Big Bane, the Rebirth Bane, I think is what they've categorised him as. He's awesome as a leader, in my opinion. He's very much the epitome of what this crew is about. I know he's a major investment in points, possibly one of the most expensive models in the game so far. And I just think he brings a lot to the table, though. I think he's pretty much the model they had in mind when they designed the deck, and he allows you to bring multiple elite models to the board, and the henchmen that this crew has available to them really aren't to be sniffed at, when you get to the elite ones, certainly. He'll be taking multiple venom doses as his I will break you trait today, and actually he has 6 to dish out amongst his fans, and I'm hoping that will be quite the swing, make his henchmen able to probably one-shot some of the less powerful gangsters in the Organised Crime crew. For henchmen, we've gone for a mixed bag. So we've got, I'll just show you on the far left of my screen here, we've got the 2 shooters of the crew. We've got the elite op, who I usually take because I think is solid, and the militia soldier with the carbine. I like both of these, the guns they're toting. They're kind of useful in different ways. The militia soldier specifically for moving and shooting, he's quite handy for that, and just the elite operative for pure firepower. Yeah, he's great. Moving back, we've got an infiltrate op. Of course, always got to have her along, really, if you're serious. Her ability to hack is just amazingly useful, more so even than her defense of 5, which generally keeps her out of trouble as well. She's not very great offensively, as we've seen before, but nonetheless she has another gun, which you can't just ignore that, especially when your own henchmen are kind of weak. Like I said, the Organised Crime crew will suffer from that, maybe. In terms of the remaining henchmen, we've got the Dreadnought op, which is a great name, incidentally, and he's a great pose and a good model. And also for the first time, stealth operative, I think the reason I didn't take him before also is because I'd mislaid his card. I suddenly found it in one of the other decks. I was like, oh, there it is, brilliant. So that's probably why he was never at the forefront of my mind when I was building crews before, but he's kind of useful, I gather. I've been told, and he does look it as well. 32 points, stealthy, double blood weapon. He's got to be kind of useful. And yes, it's these 2 latter henchmen that will probably be benefiting the most from the venom doses that will be distributed like candy. I'm looking forward to seeing how this all synergizes together. I mean, the deck is pretty much the standard Soldiers of Fortune deck that I'm taking. I quite like to use them to get used to them, and I don't get to focus in on one deck specifically that often, so hopefully I'll be able to learn even more today. Okay, let's move on and see what Organised Crime is bringing to the board. Here we are, the Ventriloquist, Arnold Wesker, the first model in DC, well, the first character in DC, shall I say, to get the title The Ventriloquist, I think. Certainly the original one to my memory, and the small Al Capone-esque doll on his knee there. Is the doll actually sentient, a character in its own right, or is it just the puppet for the guy who wants to excuse his own criminal tendencies? I don't know, and I don't think they're ever deliberately going to cover it, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, that's fun. It's just still part of the fun, really, isn't it? Kind of a joke character, the most outlandish leader you can take for organised crime, in my opinion. He's actually also probably the only one, apart from maybe Black Mask if you use the old card, to actually have his own weapon as well. So that Tommy gun that the puppet's holding is very real and quite the threat. Not as threatening as Two-Face's Tommy gun, but yeah, it's still better than most things that you get on organised crime leaders, certainly. This guy doesn't, like I said, doesn't bring any extra funding to the crew, so you have to be a bit more frugal with your distribution of guns and whatnot. But he does, however, give you some really useful crew building traits. So every model with brass knuckles or reinforced gloves gets a buff. All your models with the criminal keyword get a buff as well, and it's quite a useful one. It's +1 to hit, I think, for all attacks. So that's really useful, especially if you know when you apply over a larger crew with lots of criminals in it. So yeah, and that's what I've done basically. So for the actual mafioso, all the models that actually have brass knuckles that I have, or reinforced gloves, are in the crew to make use of that. We've also got Iceman here with his really useful, I think it's an assault rifle. He'll be benefiting from +1 to hit as well. You know, for shooting as well. I've taken the high security henchman because I had some points left over at the end and he fit perfectly. And yes, he's a criminal, so he gets +1 to hit with those dual combo knives. Really useful. And Killer Moth for some much needed mobility. And another just a really useful model to take in most crews, to be funnily enough, given his surprising, given his outlandish appearance and the fact that he's one of the oddballs you can take. He actually does fit into an awful lot of crews. That radio will be useful, and yeah, like I said, he's got extra mobility and yeah, interesting stuff. Also a criminal, so +1 to hit, love it. Yeah, I mean, there's a gaggle of traits over the rest of the models, and you know, here and there. They're not really, you know, designed to be game breaking or earth shattering, but they might be useful nonetheless, and I'll also explain them as I come to them. Taking organised crime also meant there was a huge wad of points left over that I could use for a fairly fun free agent. Was thinking of Hush, to be perfectly honest, because he will tie in quite well to some of the cards in this organised crime deck. But new models need to go on, and why not take the KG Beast when you know, if you're facing down Bane and his Soldiers of Fortune, you need some real muscle. Why not get the best that the ex-Soviet Union can offer? And yeah, so I've been looking forward to getting this guy on the board for some time. He's now painted, and yeah. Here we go. He's almost as big as Bane in terms of, you know, pure muscle mass. So and he's got equivalent stats to a Batman and a Bane. So we'll see how that works out in practice. It certainly should make it a little bit more interesting when things come to push and shove between the Soldiers of Fortune's generally better henchmen and the squishier organised crime crew mooks, when you've got this guy around to redress the balance somewhat. I'm actually using the deck as is. I haven't played with it yet at all. Just printed it out, to be perfectly honest. And that's I'm looking forward to seeing how that works. It's the reason I haven't modified the Soldiers of Fortune crew deck either. I'm just trying to use both decks as is, to give, you know, to keep it simple, really. Okay, right, well, let's get on to deployment. Okay, set up as follows. We drew the Vanguard deployment, nice corner to corner, and one model could be deployed 4 inches outside of those deployment zones. Pretty small deployment zones altogether, which could well impact on the ability for either side to play their cards. Okay, let's start with the Soldiers of Fortune, since they're more on the frame at the moment. We've got what's his name? The stealth operative on the top here. We've got Bane and Dreadnought up at the back, Duke over here, and moving forwards 4 inches out of the deployment zone is the militia soldier. The reason stealth operative is actually up here is because he's got the undercover rule, which allows him to deploy 8 inches further forward, so could pop him on top of that roof there. As a hidden deployment, the infiltrate op moved further forwards and deployed herself down by this dumpster here. Okay, moving over to the ventriloquists crew. Most of them are clustered down here in the deployment zone. Some of them around this sewer marker here, hoping to get some use of that, I'm sure. So yeah, we've got the main man himself. He's the one who moved a bit further forwards from the deployment card. He's backed up by KG Beast and Killer Moth there, and the bodyguard Mook there, as well as Iceman with the rifle, and finally the last 2 henchmen over there, all nicely within inspire range, sorry, not infiltrate. Speaking of infiltration though, high security henchman also has the hidden rule. Deploying over here, he's nicely out of sight there. Hidden models have to be outside of line of sight, so he's forwards there, and underneath the building that stealth operative is on top of. He is actually quite constrained as to where he could go, because Duke, the elite operative over here, has night vision goggles, so all that cover of darkness didn't apply for the deployment of high security henchman over there, so that was interesting to find out. Okay, let's get on with the first turn. Right, well, take the lead and raise the plan phases of turn number 1 are both complete now. Not many cards to be played in either phase. In the first phase, neither side played any objective cards from their hands, but if the Organised Crime is in black, you can see they well and truly did win the initiative roll on a 4-1. Despite Bane's +1, it wasn't enough, so the Ventriloquist will be taking the initiative in this first turn. In terms of the raise the plan phase, 1 card did come out of the hand for the Ventriloquist, recovering the Deuce. It's played in the second phase, scores at the end. It's worth 3 points. Target a friendly model, may not be the boss. They went with this high security henchman over here. That model, that model reveals an enemy suspect and is still in the gaming area. Basically, he's not dead, is the plan. Having it revealed as a suspect. There are no enemy suspects on the board at the moment, so this is very speculative, but I figured playing it gets it out of the hand, helps them cycle the deck a bit. He over here is the most likely to be able to score it, so I figured it's better to have it out and in potential than it would be to basically not have to sit with it in the hand all game, well, all turn at least. So there you go. No cards played in the second phase by the Soldiers of Fortune at all, but let's see who's got Audacity, and since we're over here, we'll go, it's Bane, Militia Soldier, Stealth Operative, and of course Infiltrate Op for the Soldiers of Fortune. Meanwhile, you might have noticed earlier, the High Security Henchman has Audacity for Organised Crime, along with the Ventriloquist himself, KG Beast and Killer Moth. Lots of inspiration though to go around with the others. So right, let's get this show on the road. Let's start some activations, and it's the Organised Crime crew to go first. Well, first move of the game was taken by Iceman here. He realised quite shrewdly that with night vision, Duke all the way at the back here of the Soldiers of Fortune deployment zone, so I'll just zoom out a little bit there, it's a bit urgent otherwise, was probably able to see him, and he was relatively speaking in the open over there, so he activated first. He didn't have Audacity, but he moved forward with Inspiration and used that to pop down this suspect marker here. He puts him in a bit of cover at least, so if Duke does shoot at him, he'll lose a die for cover and also a die for shooting beyond his maximum range, so at least there's that, you know, might shake the odds up a little bit anyway. No cards played as a result of that, but does put Iceman in a pretty good position for surveying the rest of the board with that gun of his. Well, next up, first for Soldiers of Fortune was Stealth Operative. He moved along the top of the the dino gas here, and put down a suspect marker. Doing so enabled him to score Black Ops immediately for 2 lovely points. Friendly model places a suspect within 8 inches of an enemy model that cannot draw a line of sight to the friendly model or the suspect. Well, the high security henchman is nicely down there. He can't see either of these guys from his point of vision. So yeah, that qualifies. Nice easy 2 points there for the Soldiers of Fortune. Malatesta activated next, and is just a low-level Mookie. He didn't have many high aspirations for the turn. He is very fast though, and from over here he was able to move 12 inches into the centre of the board, pop down a suspect marker of his own due to the fact that he was inspired by the Ventriloquist. Again though, no cards actually scored or played in this part of the turn. Okay, a busy turn next for the Infiltrator. She activated down here. First of all, she has a radio, so she was inspired as well as having audacity. So the inspiration granted manipulate action she used to pop down this suspect marker. As you can see, it's got a numerical counter on it. Invasion was played as an objective card for 2 points. Basically, by placing this suspect marker, it had to be within 4 inches of a piece of scenery which was nearby an enemy, and this big old RFC building. HFC, sorry, is qualifying for that, obviously, because there's lots of enemies within 4 inches of it. So anyway, yes, she puts a numerical counter down. She rolled a 4 on a dice, so it's a number 4 there. That means that this will count down after its subsequent activation of models. If it reaches 0 without being molested off the board or revealed, that will be 2 points scored for the Soldiers of Fortune crew, basically. So there's a timer ticking down on that. Anyway, having done that, she then used the tactical action she had from her audacity counter to shoot at Malatesta with her light assault carbine, which should have done a lot more damage than it did, to be honest. She had a whole raft of dice, she hadn't moved, and she had a reroll, but nonetheless, with 5 dice hitting on either 3s or 2s, she only hit 2. Yeah, which was a bit rubbish, to be perfectly honest. Probably won't see that sort of rolling again for a little while, but yes, each hit did 1 point of blood damage, so yeah, 2 points of blood damage on the mobster. Could actually, with reasonable chance of success, could have killed him, but didn't. Oh well. So yeah, he's taken 2 of his 4 points of endurance worth of damage. Nonetheless, whether he died or not, the Ventriloquist had a card up his sleeve to play as an objective card. The Pinched Mobster came out. It's worth 3 points, so it's pretty good, and it's funny, you play this card when a friendly model takes damage, which Malatesta just did. I've got the event marker just there, it says Pinched Mobster, so yep. A model may manipulate the marker to move it 4 inches. It will score when the marker is inside the Organised Crime's deployment zone. So there you go, that's when it will score. So this card will stay out indefinitely until it scores. Or if somehow it can no longer possibly score for some reason, then the card will come off. But not sure that would be realistically plausible in this circumstances. Anyway, so yes, having done, yeah, so there you go, there's the Pinched Mobster. Would normally have been in contact with him, you'll notice, but what happened was Infiltrator moved up as well, then used her special action to do some hacking, and the Pinched Mobster was moved a bit further away from said needy deployment zone. So there you go, she's really useful. So yeah, even when the nice new cards do come out, she can still react and annoy the enemy with those. The other thing that happened was she hacked this suspect marker a bit closer to her as well. So there you go, nice full turn for Infiltrator, used every single one of her actions. Right, next activation. Okay, Killer Moth next, and I've taken the liberty of removing the construction site which was next to him here just for the purpose of the shot. I'll be putting it back in just a moment. He activated from over this side of the building. He had audacity. He activated his grapple claw to get into contact with the invasion marker that was just put down by Infiltrator, and he used his backpack to have a bonus freebie reveal action to take it off the board. What a cheeky git. So that spoils the invasion that Infiltrator just put down. I didn't factor in the mobility of this guy, and would you credit it, when he actually did that, he played an objective card from the hand, paying tribute. 2 points. Play this card when the friendly model reveals an enemy suspect. It just happened. To score, that friendly model needs to place a suspect within 4 inches of a friendly boss. So yes, he now, having picked up the goodies, he needs to go back and present them to his paymaster. Yes, so I'm going to pop this card next to his character card, so I know that he's got it on him. Obviously, if the enemy shoots him or kills him before or stops him somehow from getting back to Ventriloquist and putting down a suspect marker of his own, that will that'll put the kibosh on that plan, won't it? But just to show off the audacity, further audacity, he popped down another suspect marker of his own just there as well with his audacity marker. And what else? Oh yes, as a resource played from the hand of the ventriloquist, spring cleaning came out as well. So busy turn. When revealing an enemy suspect, like he just did, choose another enemy suspect or friendly marker and move it 4 inches. Well, the pinch mobster has now shuffled his way back this way, desperately trying to get back to his own lines for rest and recuperation, I presume. And it just shows both crews have the ability to shift things around, even by not just ordinary manipulations. Interesting stuff. Finally, just one last thing to account for the turn. As a resource from the Soldiers of Fortune crew for Bane, free-for-all came out, just so you guys know. For 2 points for the remainder of the round, friendly models may use a dose without spending it. So free drugs for everybody. So that's a weekend. Excellent. There you go. Let's move on. I think that concluded Killer Moth's activation. We're going to go back to the Soldiers of Fortune. Bane and his Soldiers of Fortune opted to use one of their 2 passes to hand the initiative back to the ventriloquist's crew. The ventriloquist himself acted next. He moved up to this position here and manipulated the pinched mobster back another 4 inches towards the deployment zone and safety. Scoring safety, more to the point. He had half a mind to use his goad ability on Infiltrate Op, but she has the Master of Stealth, which means she can't be seen from more than 6 inches away, and unfortunately that did just put her out of line of sight. So that was a bit of a bummer for me when I suddenly remembered that rule. So no hijinks for her there, but I'd already moved him and manipulated, so a bit late to do anything else. It does leave him he is out of sight himself though from any of the guns on the Soldiers of Fortune side though, so it's not complete suicide. Right, let's move back to the Soldiers of Fortune. Bane activated next, and first of all he distributed venom for free out amongst himself, of course, and his 2 buddies nearby, because he can do that with his I will break you trait. Just knocking buildings over beneath the camera. Nice, well done me. As I said, in that previous activation he'd actually played a resource that let him do this for free, so no venom doses used as yet. Having done so, he played as a resource Search and Destroy. For one of his resource points. He has 1 remaining for the turn. After a friendly model uses a venom dose, it gains plus 4 inch movement. So he used that on himself and he's thundered forward straight away. And he had audacity, so he thought he might as well pop down a suspect marker. Lovely jubbly. As an objective card from the hand, played free for all. It's played in this phase. It scores at the end if the Soldiers of Fortune crew have more models than the opponent within 4 inches of the centre of the gaming area. And currently, Infiltrate Op satisfies that criteria, but there aren't many fast-moving, organised crime models left to go, so hopefully that will do the business for them. If not, at least it will force them out of position, perhaps. Anyway, right, let's carry on. High security henchman. I just realised something that I could do with him. He was down here, remember, with audacity. He climbed to the top of the filling station here, and he ended up on top of the suspect marker that Stealth Operative had just put down, and he used his manipulate action to reveal that one. I forgot that. I forgot the actual rules for climbing until I thought, I wonder if he can climb, and then I realised he could. He just had enough movement to hip up there, hop over the lip of the building, and then he was standing on the suspect marker. So yes, which will obviously then score in the end phase of the turn the recovering the deuce card for 3 points for the Organised Crime crew, which I played at the beginning of the turn. I'll go into that later, of course. But so if when I put that suspect marker down, I was doing it to score the Black Ops card for the Soldiers of Fortune. This sort of actually, just interesting enough, kind of betrays a process I have for playing solo, because you have the ability to know everything that you're going to do potentially. the best way I find to actually play solo is to just concentrate on the cards in your own hand, really, you know, when you're playing them, you know, for that particular side, and then try and forget or just not pay attention to what the opponent has. It's just the easiest way to try and play a solo game of this, because this game really isn't designed to be played solo at all. I mean, and that's not really a design flaw of it, it's just not designed to be played solo. So yeah, I mean, so although it's potential that you could say that I immediately set that up so that high security henchman could score that card, I promise I didn't. I actually kind of deliberately get into a mindset of just concentrating on what would I be thinking if I was this particular team or that particular team or whatever. And yeah, I just focus on trying to score the cards I've got in my hand, and I had Black Ops, and that was the easiest way to score it. If I was playing against an actual opponent, I'd probably be a bit more wary of what my opponent was likely to do or had already played in this instance. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have been quite so dumb, but you know, I can be dumb. Anyway, never mind. That's just left them two facing off on a rooftop. It's quite an interesting little interaction, I'm sure, as you know, stealth operative says, you know, looks at high security henchman and says, "You call that a knife?" Brandishes his katana and says, "This is a knife." And then high security henchman says, "Yeah, but I've got two knives," which leads to an awkward silence because no one knows where to go with that quote after that. Anyway, having taken up that suspect marker, Paying Tribute was played again as an objective card from the hand for 2 points. We saw this just a minute ago. Play this card when a friendly model reveals a suspect. This friendly model places a suspect within 4 inches of a friendly boss to score it. So yes, I'll pop this next to high security henchman's card. If he gets back to the ventriloquist and manages to put a suspect down at any point during the course of the game, then yeah, he'll score this card. Very nice and easy. Well, I say it's very straightforward. It's not necessarily easy. He's got to fight his way through the Bane crew to get there. But hey, I guess he's psychopathic enough, and yeah, we'll see. It's if he scores it, he does. If he doesn't, 2 points. Right, let's carry on. More cards, more game, more death. Well, finally Duke activated. He's been doing a pretty good job actually back here of holding off the organised crime crew from being able to move exactly where they want. Like I remember if I said he's got night vision goggles, so he's got pretty much the entire length of the board as his oyster, really, barring cover, which there is some. I'm sure people will say this is a little bit Spartan today, and yes, I agree, but you need to play some games with less cover than some games with completely littered with cover, otherwise guns become, meaningless or too powerful. I like to have a sort of what I call a medium amount of cover. So there's a few things here which block line of sight. The cards generally do. Anyway, this guy Duke was put in a good position where he could see good length of the board, and right, so what he did do with his night vision goggles is open fire on Iceman down here, who scurried into cover despite shooting beyond his comfortable range of 16 inches and also shooting into cover. He rolled two. He still had 2 dice to go, and he needed 3s to hit, and they both duly came up 3 pluses, which was 6 points of blood damage, as you can see there, which sadly for Iceman is more than enough to pick this guy up off the board. Does not tie into any actual scoring capacity for the Soldiers of Fortune. I don't think the Soldiers of Fortune have an awful many lots of cards in their deck that score as a result of doing damage, but it's always useful to do, especially the guy with that kind of gun. What they did do next, though, however, was play Cyber Attack as a objective from the hand for 2 victory points. There's a lot of text there. They picked 2 of the opponent's suspect markers, so they've gone for this one here and this one next to Killer Moth. Rolled a D3 plus 2 to get a counter. They rolled a 1, so it's 3 activations. These will count down at the end of each subsequent activation, much like the invasion did earlier. If either of these are still on the board at the point the countdown reaches 0, either of those suspect markers that is, then the 2 points will score for the Soldiers of Fortune as they hack into and disrupt the organised crime's activities. So yes, very difficult. Yeah, I've said this quite a lot though, but nonetheless, it's going to be difficult for organised crime to reach both of these by the end of this countdown. But we'll see. We'll see what comes up. Right, both sides got a lot of cards ticking away and potentially scoring later on in the turn. So let's see. Okay, KG Beast activated next for the organised crime crew, but I did forget one piece of admin. Shows, like I said, you've got to concentrate what's in your own current hand, but in the Soldiers of Fortune turn, when they shot and killed Iceman, I actually had another pinched mobster in the hand for the Organised Crime deck, so they actually, when Iceman died, they managed to put this one down, much the same as the other pinched mobster from Malatesta earlier. It works when you die as well. So this actual normal event marker is the other pinched mobster, desperately close to the Organised Crime crew's deployment zone. So yeah, difficult times for them, but yeah, it's interesting. I only have one pinched mobster marker I made up because I thought I'd only need one. Just goes to show, doesn't it? You're never ready. So it's a standard event marker for that one from the base game. Yeah, so but another potential 3 points on the board for Organised Crime. No actual points scored, but loads in potential. Right, let's get on with KGB's turn. So first of all, annoyingly for Soldiers of Fortune, the Organised Crime crew played the program as a resource. Their last 2 resource points, both sides having used all their resource points this game, so this first turn so far. During a friendly model's activation, remove a friendly suspect and move an enemy model 4 inches. Well, they're picking up this one over here, which is counting down as part of the cyber attack, and they moved the infiltrate op 4 inches out of cover into the middle there, and as you can see, KGBs took the opportunity to barrel into her 10 inches straight forwards and attacked her in close combat. Neither side put any efforts in. He used his retractable claws. He has his master fighting in +1 to hit, because normally she's very, very highly defensible. Nonetheless, her defense rolls came up pretty good, blocked everything apart from 1 hit and the strength die, so she takes 1 point of blood, 1 point of stun per hit, so 2 each. There you go, you can see them there. He also activated his steal effect with his special action, so he went through the hand of the Soldiers of Fortune and discarded one of their what the Organised Crime crew believes to be most easy to score cards. So there you go, and yeah, there you go. That was a pretty useful turn. It leaves Mr. Beast a little bit exposed out in the middle there, but he is defense 5 naturally, so hopefully that will hold him in good stead. We'll find out. Went with Militia Soldier 1 next. He moved around to be next to Bane. He's has his assault carbine there, which means he, instead of losing dice for moving and shooting, he's only at -1 to hit, which is overall pretty good when you got 5 dice plus a strength die to dish out to people. He took aim, so I say, at Killer Moth, and in a display of shooting, which would have not even finished off Malatesta had he moved to shoot him instead, he only hit with 1 die. Pretty embarrassing, that one. Yeah, he did lose the strength die due to shooting beyond line of sight, you know, through the darkness, so to speak. That was the only die he lost, nonetheless, so pretty good. Yeah, so there we are. That was a bit embarrassing, guys, but hey, 1 point of blood damage to Killer Moth. The Soldiers of Fortune anxiously waited whilst I checked the hand of the Organised Crime crew to see if they had another pinched mobster card in there, but they did not, so just a 1 point of damage. Right, carrying on. For Organised Crime, Alan the Tailor Il Gordo activated. He is the bodyguard model from this set, and so he wanted to be within 4 inches of the Ventriloquist when he finished, so he managed to get into a position where he can move up. He was still inspired, only just. I did make sure that Ventriloquist was just in inspiration range for him still, and yes, he moved up to be in contact with this pinched mobster as well, and used his freebie manipulate because he was inspired to move him back. This pinched mobster is now just a baby mouse's whiskers width away from being in the Organised Crime deployment zone. Doesn't score yet though, so still agonizingly far away. That concludes this guy's move. The last model to activate for the Soldiers of Fortune, Dreadnought up there. He didn't have Audacity, he was not inspired, so he just moved up to be close to his boss and hopefully get some more free drugs next turn. That concludes all the Soldiers of Fortune crew's activations for the turn, so I'll just move back to Organised Crime to finish off, and yeah, that's that then really. No cards to score, both sides having used up all of their resource points. That does kind of doesn't help them cycle the deck very much. In his swanky white suit, Luigi the Bull Lombardo has found himself relegated to pinched mobster duty, it seems, today. He was again in inspire range of the Ventriloquist, so he was able to move over and put this pinched mobster back into the deployment zone for Organised Crime, which means that this card does finally score for 3 lovely points. It's good fun, that one. I do like it. It's quite thematic and fun to do. It's a very different way to score cards, you know, and, you know, if any crew can do it that has the numbers, should be Organised Crime. Their mooks tend to come in quite cheap, and it's good laugh. This is a very difficult deployment zone to do it in as well, because it's right back in the corner as well. Don't forget, Batman Miniatures game got many different deployment zones you can potentially draw for this, some of which are much easier to score than others with this card, and this was a tough one. So yeah, obviously getting hurt next to you, near in your own half of the board though helps. Anyway, he moved there. Then that basically concludes his activations. He's in inspiration range next turn though, so hopefully that's that. Oh, forgot to mention earlier, the cyber attack from earlier from the Soldiers of Fortune has reached countdown with this suspect marker, which is still in play, so those 2 points did score earlier in the turn for the Soldiers of Fortune, so that's good for them. Right, so I'll pick this pinch mobster up, I'll replace it with that one in a moment, and we'll go to the recount phase. Okay, recount phase now complete. A point of stun damage removed from Infiltrate Op, but everything else is blood damage, so nothing removed from anyone else. Went through the cards in both sides' hands, and neither side is playing any cards in this fourth phase to score right now, and then went through the caster check to see if they scored, and as we found out earlier, recovering the juice will score for the Organised Crime crew for 3 points. They nominated High Security Henchman to remove a suspect, and he is not dead, and he managed to remove that suspect like I told you earlier. At infinitum, ad nauseum probably. Yeah, so 3 points for Organised Crime. Whoopsie doodles. In terms of the others, the free-for-all card for Soldiers of Fortune does not score. It did look like a bit of a cert because they had Infiltrate up there with it not sitting in the middle of the board, but that card did move her out. So yeah, that was an unexpected turn of events to my mind anyway. And yeah, they weren't able to replace anyone in the middle of the board to score it. So yes, an unusual 2 points failure there for the Soldiers of Fortune. Bummer for them. Very interesting that turn actually, because I forgot to mention, I didn't mention it at the time, but the steal effect that KG Beast inflicted actually took out a pretty much certain to score global offensive card, where they Soldiers of Fortune had more veterans on the board than this Organised Crime crew had suspect markers. It was pretty much a guaranteed score at that point. That would have been a lovely 3 points as well. So yeah, lots of interest, lots of just on like point denials of the from the Organised Crime, yes, at the moment, and they've scored a couple themselves now. So yeah, still all to play for. That was just turn one. Both crews getting much closer in now, and yeah, I get a feeling that Soldiers of Fortune will be much happier in the rough and tumble than the Organised Crime will, and they've removed a model already. So let's get on to turn two and see how this game hots up. Well, turn two and the first and second phases are both now just been complete. Lots to recount. First things first, to take the lead phase. Can reveal that a couple of cards were played, one from each side's hand, as evidenced by this domination marker down there. Again, reading upside down, better be your specialty. But domination was played by the Bane crew, Soldiers of Fortune, for 3 points. It will score at the end of the turn if there are more Soldiers of Fortune models within 4 inches of this marker than Organised Crime ones. They have to put it next to a Organised Crime model of their choice. They chose Killer Moth, as you can see down there. So obviously me choosing to put this very narrow alleyway in here was a really good idea for filming, huh? We learn badly sometimes, but hopefully we learn well soon. Yes, so this marker can be manipulated by either side to move it 4 inches at a time. So yes, it may well there. It serves well, even if you don't score it, to draw the enemy out of position, hopefully. And if you do score it, it's a lovely 3 points. In the first phase, well, speaking of Killer Moth, his own card came out, the Moth Signal. Again, 3 points. We'll score at the end of the turn again, so some long burns here. Choose a scenery element within 4 inches of a friendly model and at least 8 inches outside your deployment zone. They chose this van thing here, okay? And yes, you have at least one friendly model and a friendly suspect within 4 inches of that scenery element at the end of the turn. So yes, they need to have at least one suspect marker and at least one model. That's the Organised Crime crew to score this, and yeah, we'll see how that goes for them. It's not as big a ask as some cards, but yeah, the enemy is closing in, so we'll see how that affects things. In terms of of who won the initiative, can see if you look, the Bane crew got it this time with a 4-2 win there, so Bane's crew will be going first. And moving on to the second phase, which is Raise the Plan, a couple of cards came out for the Organised Crime crew. First of all, we got Recovering the Juice again from last time. This is one that High Security Henchman jumped up and scored last time. 3 points. At the end of the turn, if they chose the High Security Henchman again, because, you know, why not, and may not be, so they chose him. He has to reveal an enemy suspect and not actually be killed. So yeah, that's he may do that, he may not. He wasn't expecting to last turn, but yeah, again, cycles the deck even if he doesn't score it. And finally, the last card to come out before the activation started was the Ventriloquist's own card, the True Boss, which is quite a fun one. Again, 3 lovely points, scores at the end of the turn again. So basically, each time a friendly model performs a manipulate action, place a stun marker on the top of his card, and then you remove one with an enemy henchman. So Soldiers of Fortune performs a manipulate action. So and if this card has at least 1 star marker, score this card. So yeah, basically the overall gist is that the Organised Crime crew has to have some more, you know, perform more manipulates in the turn than Soldiers of Fortune. Something they should be able to do and maybe even be motivated to do. So hopefully that'll be a good 3 points for them. Okay, after all that, let's just get down to the actual, you know, meat and veg of the Raise the Plan phase and show you who's got audacity. So for Organised Crime, we've got Malatesta, the Ventriloquist himself, of course KG Beast, now things are getting a bit close, and one for High Security Henchman up there, because obviously he's got that objective card next to him. Right, with Soldiers of Fortune, it would be silly not to give one to Infiltrate Op, given where she is. One for Stealth Op, since he's in combat with the High Security Henchman, one for Bane, and one for the Militia Soldier, who was hoping to use his assault weapon a bit more. Okay, right, that was a big old 2 phases for turn 2. Let's get on with the really good stuff, the activations in phase 3. Okay, yeah, Prudence dictated that Infiltrate Op went first, given that she was in combat with KG Beast. Right, so first things first, she had Audacity, if you recall, so she used her special action to perform hacking, and the only real marker she wanted to move was the Domination marker, so she's moved it a little bit further into the middle of the board, nearer the rest of the Soldiers of Fortune crew. Nice. Hopefully able to, yeah, score that in the course of the turn. Yes, so then she moved into the centre and popped down a suspect marker with her manipulate action, and in so doing she played Invasion. I think we've seen that one already. 2 points, lots of text. The criteria for putting down the suspect marker had to be within 4 inches of a scenery element that was which was within 4 inches of an enemy, and this van certainly does meet that criteria. So yes, 3 points. So and she rolled a dice. It's got a countdown of 3 subsequent activations. If that reaches 0, then they'll score the lovely 2 points. So another card bubbling away for either side. Lots of criteria need to be met for these cards, but they're quite simple and straightforward, thank goodness, to keep track of. Right, let's carry on. That was Infiltrate Op's turn done. Okay, Killer Moth went first for Organised Crime. He didn't have Audacity, but he is, due to the fact that he has a radio on his profile, which makes him amazingly useful, he gets inspired automatically, which is really, really great. I do like that little rule. Makes him and his mobility makes this guy so useful in so many crews. Anyway, he activated, and although over here he moved just using his normal movement in over to here and put down a suspect marker next to his boss, which enabled him to pay tribute. It's a card, remember, that was played on him last turn. He's fulfilled the scoring criteria. That friendly model places a suspect within 4 inches of a friendly boss. So there you go, for 2 lovely points. That scores straight away. And yes, also don't forget they need to put down a suspect marker for the moth signal, so that will form a dual purpose. Lovely. What I can show you now is how this ties into something else, because the Organised Crime crew as a whole, which regardless of which leader you take, or boss or whatever, has a particular rule which is really cool, called the black market, where every card they score, if you notice, if I just pick one up here, you see the italic at the bottom, when scored gain $100 black money, or black funding is what it says. That's black market money, and it can be used during the course of the game to purchase is that if you want to pause the video, there's the actual the ruling, but you can actually use it to purchase funky goods. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of them now because that would be long-winded, and the rules are available for free online, so there you go. But yes, you can buy equipment for your models as you go. It has to be a henchman, and he has to be able to be inspired, so like Killer Moth here, and it's during his activation. So what I'm going to do is I've got a separate pile for the scored cards of their, you know, for the ones that they're spending, for the ones that they're able to take money from, and yes, I've actually made some little counters up for each of the particular pieces of war gear that you can buy, and I'm going to buy Killer Moth Night Nurse, pop that on his profile card, and at the end of his activation, i.e. now, he's going to be able to take off that 1 point of blood damage he took last turn. So yes, takes basically Night Nurse at the end of his activation he can remove a point of damage, so pretty useful for 100 funding. And yes, I will fill you in as other things are purchased as the game goes on. But yeah, a nice little extra bit of ruling for the organised crime, makes them that bit more unique compared to other crews, and also lets you you know, personalise your crew as the game goes on as well, as the need arises, and some of the options are really useful, as I'm sure you'll find out. Right, carrying on with Soldiers of Fortune. Elite Operative activated next, and taking advantage of the relatively early part of the turn, whilst most of the Organised Crime crew hasn't had a chance to react to anything yet, he opened fire on KG Beast and managed to hit him twice with a barrage of fire. It was KG Beast is actually defense 5, but only the strength die and the one of the attack dice managed to hit home on his defense 5 there. So yeah, but 6 points of blood damage. That's a pretty hefty bashing he's taken. He's got 3 points of endurance remaining. Yeah, I forgot to mention. Oh, I just looked it up and had completely forgotten that the assault rifle that Elite Operative is toting doesn't actually have a range specified, so he can effectively shoot the length of the board without penalty if he needs to, which is fine. It's a gun after all. Guns can shoot quite far usually, and but yeah, usually they have medium range on them or something like that, which always, you know, which sort of implies things. But yeah, don't worry, I should have noticed that. Thankfully it didn't make any difference to the earlier shot in the game, but yeah, that's a hefty bit of damage there to KG Beast. Malatesta activated next for Organised Crime. He was over here next to his Audacity counter, just to remind you that he had Audacity, and he was also inspired by the Ventriloquist, which enabled him to move into combat with the Infiltrate Op. He then used his Manipulate freebie to pick up the counting down invasion suspect marker that Infiltrate Opera put down, so more victory points denied there for Soldiers of Fortune. He then used his Broken Bottle, which is a one-off he gets to you attack with, to attack Infiltrate Op. Infiltrate Op didn't put any effort in to defend herself. She has defense 5. She thought she could block anything coming her way, and she's quite hard to hit already. But he put in Malatesta put in maximum effort to get a whole bunch more dice. Add that in with the Ventriloquist's own, what's it called? His Hard Guys rule, I think it is. That's the one that basically gives all of his henchmen +1 to their attack dice rolls, which is lovely. Yes, it caused 3 hits to get through after all was said and done. She did block 3 hits coming in, but there were so many, and each hit causes 2 points of blood. So 2 points of damage got two hits got through, 4 points of blood. That's enough with the damage she took last turn to kill her, unfortunately. Oof. Didn't really expect that one. She's usually quite impervious, but you got to remember she is still just a henchman. You can't, or hench lady maybe, I don't know, whatever she prefers. And yeah, she can't, she can't just take up lots of damage all the time. You know, it will stack up eventually, and it was a good roll for Malatesta, let's be fair, and he had to put a lot of effort in. Yeah, he's looking very precarious there. But however, the Soldiers of Fortune did manage to score a hard point from that. She Infiltrate Op did block 3 hits, so for 2 points, a friendly model within 8 inches of another friendly model with a veteran trait. Well, that's all of these 3 guys at the back here. Here we go. Cancels at least 2 successful hits, and she did. Didn't save her, but it did, however, score 2 points. So not too bad. No points scored from that, from Organised Crime, but they did deny the invasion. Okay, let's move on. Oof. Bane went next, and he juiced himself with Venom as much to activate his Venom Enrage ability, which gives him invulnerability, as much as to cause more damage. He moved around the car and basically crunched Malatesta by a lot. It was a lot of dice hitting on 2s, and Malatesta was blocking on 6s, so yeah, it's not really surprising that that many hits gets through. Malatesta is well and truly KO'd. Having done that, it did enable him to play Search and Destroy. Nice easy staple there for Soldiers of Fortune for 2 points. A friendly model scores at least 2 hits during action where it performed at least 2 efforts, and just taking the Venom gave Bane those 2 free efforts anyway, so nice easy score there. And we're going to carry on now with Organised Crime. Okay, next up was KG Beast, but a little bit of admin before that. Forgot to say, before the end of Malatesta's, before the end of Bane's turn, Malatesta actually did also play another pinched mobster from the hand of Organised Crime. It's we've seen that lots now for this, even though it's the first game with Organised Crime. I think we know it. It's another event marker now because my other pinched mobster token is still making its way back towards the deployment zone, and this one is going to have to have a lot more work to get it all the way back here, but you never know. It's another 3 potential points. Let's put that in the big old potential scoring cauldron that I've got roiling away, and so there you go. Right, back to Mr. Beast. He activated from over here. He did have Audacity. Right, he actually has a choice of 2 guns to use when he's tilting up. He went with his cybernetic gun to start with. I forgot to mention that earlier, and he fired at Bane, and I did underestimate how powerful it was. He used his special action to give himself good aim, which gives him +1 to hit, which basically, and the beam weapon rule on it meant it ignored the cover which this van was meant to be providing, and so he had 4 dice hitting on 2s, doing 2 points of blood each, all of which duly came up. So yes, 8 points of blood damage to Bane himself. Oh, wait a minute. Bane's got invulnerability, so I'll be taking some of those off. I think it's just the 1 point, but I'll double check that before I carry on. But yes, nonetheless, it's still a nice helping of damage to the Soldiers of Fortune boss. He's not dead. He has 10 points of endurance, and he'll have he might have at least 3 left by the end of this. But yeah, that was a hefty shot. Having done that, KG Beast had a movement action left, and he moved over to pop himself pretty much on top of this domination marker, just to make it harder for the Soldiers of Fortune to score. Okay, right, well, that's not bad. And finally, just one little last thing, the Organised Crime crew as a resource played Shakedown. For 1 resource point, get that in focus. When an enemy model suffers damage, another enemy model within 6 inches of it suffers the scared effect. So that's why the malicious soldier there has got a funky little marker there. He'll be on -1 to his attack and defense rolls for the remainder of the round because of what he's just seen happen to his paymaster and boss. Right, let's carry on. Dreadnought activated next, and he didn't have Audacity, but he was inspired by Bane's presence just over there. He moved down here into contact with the domination marker and manipulated it to pop it just over here to this side, so both he and KG Beast are within 4 inches of it. So currently it's nullified out because there needs to be more Soldiers of Fortune models nearby, but they've got another model there just who might just be able to make it, and I don't think there's many on the side of Organised Crime who can. So that concludes Duke's, or otherwise, no, it's not Duke, that is, what's his name? Billy, or the Dreadnought Op. His activation, he's in base contact with KG Beast, who's flagging a little bit, so obviously it's a better time to do it now than later. Okay, just another action there. This is for the bull. What's his name? Luigi Lombardo, I think. And yes, he was continuing his quest to bring the pinch mobsters home. He moved over. He had inspiration and used his freebie manipulate action that came with it just to move the mobster over here. It's got 1 more action. I think we'll get it safely into the deployment zone and score those lovely 3 points. Also, during his turn, with more black market money, was able to buy priorities for him. As you can see, it's number 8 there at the bottom. During this model's activation, you may discard an objective card. So yes, this model can, whenever he activates, he can cycle the deck a bit more. That's pretty good, if you ask me. Quite useful at the moment, not holding too much that sets the world on fire as regards the objective cards in the Organised Crime deck's hand at the moment. So yeah, this should mess things up nicely, and he's quite safely at the back too. So there we go. Let's get back to the Soldiers of Fortune. Okay, the Militia Soldier 1 model here, activated. He was scared, don't forget, and unfortunately I did forget. So when I used his last round of ammunition to shoot at KG Beast, he was only hitting on 6s and 2s for the strength die, which was the only die that actually came up for him, doing 1 point of blood damage to the already wounded mercenary, but wasn't enough to finish him off. Thought it might, I mean, it still could have been, and yeah, if you had killed him, it would have been very, very worth it. And he was hitting on 6s, but he only had 3 points of endurance left. But yes, down to 2 now. That does, however, exhaust the last piece of ammunition on the side of the Organised Crime, the Soldiers of Fortune. Sorry, but. Hey-oh, they'll just have to do things the old-fashioned way with, tomahawks, I guess. Anyway, right, so having done that, he had audacity. He moved up to the, the domination marker. He was inspired, so he used the extra manipulate action just to move it, just to move that marker a little bit further away from here. Also, don't just notice there's a sewer marker there, so Organised Crime could actually potentially move models through into it to contest that domination marker. So he's just put the kibosh on that. So yes, that's still not a bad turns movement for Militia Soldier 1 there. And yeah, it's not just about shooting people. He can still score cards and whatnot, and do other sorts of manipulations. Okay, high security henchman activated next. He was up here. He managed to resist the urge to attack the stealth operative. He was thinking about the the objective card that was played at the beginning of the turn, so he moved down and revealed this suspect marker on the Soldiers of Fortune crew. All of a sudden he felt a lot safer doing so once Bane had activated, and so had the Militia Soldier. But yeah, he still has to survive until the end of the round, so we'll see how that goes for him. Okay, let's carry on. Okay, Stealth Op with the last model to go for Soldiers of Fortune activated. First of all, as a resource play from the hand, the Domination card came out. One resource point used. Move a suspect or drone marker up to 4 inches. Can be played at the start of an activation, so hence why it happened while he was still on top of that filling station. The suspect marker that Killer Moth had put down earlier to satisfy the Moth signal has just been moved a bit further away. So yes, that will interfere with the Moth signal objective card that I played at the beginning of the turn. To annoy as an Organised Crime as much as possible, maybe even deny them 3 points. Anyway, Stealth Operative then jumped down and had to set about trying to deny another set of objectives and hopefully chop up the high security henchman. He has a katana which is handy and sharp. He efforted to the max, but this was matched by the high security henchman just to bring it down to the ordinary number of dice. He duly hit with every single die, including the strength die, and the high security henchman managed to block all bar 2 of them, taking 2 points of blood damage each, so you can see 4 points of blood altogether. Not sufficient to kill high security henchman. A big ask anyway. He's got 8 points of endurance altogether, so he had to miss with every single one. But hey, this is where some extra venom would have been useful, but never mind. Anyway, so that was, although it didn't kill high security henchmen, it was sufficient to score search and destroy from the hand again for Soldiers of Fortune. Another 2 points because 2 efforts were made and at least two hits were scored. So yeah, at least he got those 2 points out of it. So that's nothing completely wasted. Anyway, let's carry on with the Organised Crime crew now and finish off this turn's activations because they're the only ones with models to go. Arnold Wesker, the ventriloquist, he decided to activate next, and before you could say Gottlieb gear, he'd already used these miniature Tommy gun on Scarface to attack Dreadnought Op there. The light armour that Dreadnought Op has took off the strength die, but enough. All 3 remaining dice managed to score hits, so 3 points of blood, 3 points of stun on the mercenary. Not bad at all. And yes, that kicked off the turn. Next thing that happened was that the ventriloquist used his movement activation to move into up to the more or less the centre of the board, and used his goad ability on Militia Operative here to move him away from the domination marker and also away from inspire range of Bane as well. So that's annoying. It's an opposed willpower check, which was easy enough to overcome the minuscule willpower 4 of the Militia Soldier, and yes, that enabled the ventriloquist to move him up to 4 inches away from the domination marker. How frustrating for Soldiers of Fortune. And just to make it even more fun, the last 2 resource points were spent to use the program which is whereby, so I just bring that into focus. During a friendly model's activation, well, there you go, remove a friendly suspect and move an enemy model 4 inches. Well, the suspect marker over in the corner here was taken away, and Bane, of all people, was moved back here, which actually puts him outside 8 inches of the ventriloquist, so hope may even be enough to prevent any harm coming his way as well from the monstrous Bane there. So that's fun. Okay, that was a pretty good activation. We're just going to round it off. I think it's the Tailor's turn to go, and that's that. Yes, and activate Tailor did. So he moved up and decided he was going to put down a suspect marker to make the moth signal count once again as an activate, as an action. He was inspired by Ventriloquist's proximity. Unfortunately for him, damage counter still on the board from before. Let's get rid of those. Haha. But yes, unfortunately for him, having put down the suspect marker, Bane's Soldiers of Fortune crew played Ozito from their hand, which is Bane's specific personal objective card. So much text. It's very simple, basically, though. Thank goodness. Instead of putting down a suspect marker, he's revealed he has Bane's teddy bear, and yes, Bane will be seeking this out for the remainder of the game. If a model moves into contact with it during their movement activation, so it's still on the board at the moment, no one's actually moved into it yet. Yes, they'll be able to pick it up, and if an enemy model has it, he gains Bane gains bonus movement and combat against that particular model. So yeah, that's a dangerous one. If Soldiers of Fortune finish the game with Ozito in possession, though, they will end up with 3 lovely victory points. Yes, and more importantly, that's not a suspect marker for Organised Crime. So that will annoyingly mean that there's no suspect markers around this van come the end of the game. End of the turn anyway. But let's confirm that in the recount phase, which we're going to go to now. Well, recount complete. Every model that could, as in every model carrying a point of stun damage that was still conscious, removed 1 point of stun damage. Can reveal that Malatesta remained wisely knocked out and inactive on the board there. Yes, cards which scored and cards which did not score. Well, the domination marker is out in the middle on its own there. No models within 4 inches from either side, so domination does not score for Soldiers of Fortune. It was contested right up to the end, but sadly for Soldiers of Fortune, not to be. Likewise, the Moth Signal card did not come out for Organised Crime because there's no Organised Crime suspect marker within 4 inches of that van, despite the fact they've got 3 models at least nearby. So that's 2 for 2 on not scoring. However, it does get better for Organised Crime because recovering the juice does score, thanks to the efforts of the high security henchman once again, who is still alive and functioning on the board there. So 3 lovely points for Organised Crime that way. And also the Ventriloquist's The True Boss card did score. By my count, over the course of the turn, there were 3 stun markers on this card, which meant they managed to way out manipulate the Soldiers of Fortune there for 3 more points on the board for them. So that's a good scoring end of the turn there for Organised Crime. But don't forget, Soldiers of Fortune have been scoring throughout the turn, more so. It's not so much that just because they're scoring it in lumps doesn't mean that Organised Crime's running away with it by any means. There's a good chance that Soldiers of Fortune have got more ongoing scoring, that's more than enough to catch up and exceed them, maybe. Well, let's see where this goes. It's turn 3 next, and both crews are now much, much closer. It should get much, much more brutal. Okay, turn 3, and the first 2 phases are now complete. In the first phase, I can reveal that domination, here we go, was played once again by the Bane crew, another 3 points, and the marker is down next to KG Beast, very familiar part of the board for the domination markers, I'm sure you'll agree, but it does make sense in the placement of the Soldiers of Fortune crew. So let's see how it works out for them this time. And once again, 3 turns for 3, recovering the juice came out in the second phase for the the Organised Crime team, and they're going with Killer Moth being the guy who has to do it, though. He has to reveal an enemy suspect, of which there are none on the board for Soldiers of Fortune, and still be alive by the end of the turn. So yeah, we'll see how that pans out for him. He is by far the most mobile model on the board, so yeah, hopefully that will work out for him. In terms of who got the initiative, it's 4-5 in favour of Organised Crime, but thanks to the fact that Bane is a mastermind and Soldiers of Fortune had a pass left over at the end of the last turn, that actually means that Soldiers of Fortune have the initiative this turn. They get +2 for those 2 things, so there you go. And in terms of who has Audacity, well, you can see on the board, but let's see. It's for Organised Crime, it's KG Beast, the Ventriloquist himself, Killer Moth, and High Security Henchman up there. Looks like he might need it where he's going. And for Soldiers of Fortune, of course, you've got Bane, he needs it. You've got Stealth Operative there, Dreadnought Operative, and finally Elite Op as well. So, okay, let's get on with working out who's going to be doing what and who's going to be scoring what. Well, Bane took the initiative and decided he better go first so he could activate his Venom in Rage. So he took a dose of Venom himself. He also took the opportunity to dish one out to Stealth Operative and also Dreadnought Op as he moved down the board, because he can do that according to his trait, I Will Break You. And he attacked, what's his name, KG Beast in close combat, which I thought was going to be a much more dangerous thing to do than he actually turned out to be. They found out it was something Bane ain't brilliant at, and that's attacking KG Beast. He had the 2 free points of effort from Venom, put an extra 1 in. KG Beast matched that of his own, and only the strength die got through. KG Beast's basic defense of 5, despite Bane being Master Fighter, and despite KG Beast only having 1 arm. That basically, that combined to make it, it didn't actually, Bane whiffed basically, it did go pretty badly for him, and only 1 hit got through the strength die for another 2 points of stun damage. So KG Beast, despite taking 5 points of stun out of his possible 7, he's still upright, which is quite surprising given who he was in combat with. Very surprising, shall we say. But not so good. It did, however, put Bane near the domination marker, so there's 3 of his models near it this time, so at least that's something in his favour. And he has taken Venom, so he's that bit more tough for the purposes of the rest of the turn. Okay, let's carry on and see what Soldiers of Fortune are going to do. Well, carrying on that combat, KG Beast activated and struck directly back at Bane with his pretty hardcore retractable claws. I'm guessing that's the spike on the end of his gun. Wow. All hit. Bane, both of them were only able to F up the once, hence you can see 1 point of stun for each of them on there. Well, that's where one of the points of stun on each of them comes from, sorry. And 4 hits got through. 6 hits, got through. All of the hits got through from KG Beast, because Bane only has defense 3, and also Bane failed all of his block rolls, so 6 points of damage got through, reduced to 4 because it's invulnerability 2 he gets from being Venom enraged. There you go. But that's 4 points of blood and 4 points of stun on Bane. 4 points of blood is enough to finish Bane off, unfortunately, for the Santa Priscan leader there. So he's gone. Wow. That was a bit of a surprise, that one. Right, having done that, the Organised Crime crew were to play Spring Cleaning as an objective from the hand. This is a good one to explain. 2 points when it scores. It gets put out now. Right, lots of text, but basically, when they remove an enemy as a casualty, the opponent has to put out 2 suspect markers within 4 inches of him. They don't have to worry about it being too close together or anything like that. So 2 Soldiers of Fortune suspect markers have been put down there. This card will score for 2 points when both of these suspect markers are no longer on the board for one reason or another. And that's quite cool, because it's like represents the mafia having to clean up a dead body, like in John Wick or something, with their laundry service. And that's quite fun. So 2 points there. Actually, as a reaction to that, I think the Soldiers of Fortune should be allowed to play Invasion from their hand. Doesn't say it has to be placed in their own turn, and the criteria is place a suspect within 4 inches of a scenery element within 4 inches of an enemy model. Well, that park bench is within 4 inches of KG Beast, so there you go. And so that countdown will go down. It's 3. They rolled a 3 on a dice, so 3 more subsequent activations. If that countdown reaches 0 and that suspect marker is still there, then 2 points for the Soldiers of Fortune. Just thought it was quite a nice little thing to throw in there as well, just to make it a bit more confusing for everyone. Anyway, that's that, and let's carry on with the turn. Over to Soldiers of Fortune. Okay, Dreadnought Op activated next, and he was able to... he had Venom, don't forget, he had Audacity too, so let's take off that counter, sorry, pardon me. There we are. Yes, he attacked KG Beast, and with the help of the Venom, and he used his Devastating Bow special trait, he was able to do 4 points of damage, four hits, doing 4 points above 4 points of stun, and that is enough to finish off the huge hulking murderous merc. Right, so forgot to mention that once Bane passed on, the Dreadnought became the boss for the purposes of the game, so he was inspired. He can inspire yourself if you're a henchman, interestingly. So he used his remaining actions to move over to the domination marker and manipulate it over here. So there you go. So it's a little bit more away from the raging hordes of organised crime models. So yes, a pretty good move for the Dreadnought Op, all made even better by playing Search and Destroy again for 2 more points as an objective. He got these 2 free efforts and did at least 2 hits on KGB. So yeah, 2 more victory points for Soldiers of Fortune. Right, back to Organised Crime. Okay, Killer Moth activated next. He needed to activate soon because the invasion counter on that suspect, which isn't there anymore, it was actually just counting down, and he needed to get there before it hit 0. So he activated, he had his grapple claw back again. He also had audacity and was inspired by the presence of the ventriloquist. He also has a backpack, I hasten to add, bought from equipment at the beginning of the game. Gave him a bonus reveal action every turn. So yes, he was well equipped for this task. He jumped into contact with those 2 suspect markers and revealed both of them with a succession of actions, which was enough to score spring cleaning. If you recall, that's the one that was put down when Bane died just a little while ago, so that's 2 more points for Organised Crime. And yes, from the hand came out to play this turn Paying Tribute, which we've seen already. I'm going to put this on Killer Moth's card. Play when a friendly model reveals an enemy suspect. That friendly model places a suspect within 4 inches of a friendly boss. So if he gets back in the last turn, so turn 4, and puts down a suspect marker next to Ventriloquist, then there'll be another 2 points. Lovely. And also, don't forget, Killer Moth was chosen to be the guy who needs to be, recovering the juice at the beginning of the turn as well. So there's a lot riding on Killer Moth for the remainder of the turn. We'll see if he can live out his potential, shall we? And yes, not a bad turn for him at all. Let's carry on and see what Soldiers of Fortune are going to do about things. Okay, Stealth Op activated next, and he tried to shank, with a katana shank, Killer Moth there before all the points could score in the world. He's easy enough movement to get in. He had the Venom dose from the beginning of the turn, and yes, Killer Moth was very, very lucky indeed. Only took 2 hits after all of that, despite the fact that with the Venom, he was very lucky because although he was able to put 3 efforts in himself, Stealth Op could only put 2 in himself due to previous damage suffered during the course of the game, just reducing the dice pool. It's also very lucky that despite the fact that he had rerolls on both the hits and the strength dice, that strength dice did not come up for him for the Stealth Operative, failed both times to get that magical 5+, which would have been unblockable. So yes, only 2 hits got through in the end. He was also quite lucky in that he managed to pass 2 out of the 3 defense rolls as well, on 3s nonetheless, but still, it could easily have gone. There were so many things that could have resulted in Killer Moth being picked up off the board. Just 1 more hit would have done the trick, basically. But yeah, that's it. Only the 2 hits, 4 points of blood damage and 3 points of stun to the crazily costumed criminal. And yes, that's a good one. So let's carry on, and yeah, didn't score any cards there for Soldiers of Fortune, but oh well, never mind, we'll carry on. Okay, the Bull, Luigi Lombardo, activated next. He simply moved down and finished off his job of moving pinched mobsters, because he didn't have audacity, but he was still just in inspiration range from the ventriloquist there. So that's another pinched mobster, scored for a lovely 3 points, and that model off the board. Well, that token off the board, sorry, I'll replace it in the middle now. So there you go. Right. Also, don't forget he had the priorities equipment purchased for him last turn, so a bit more bit more hand cycling going on there for Organised Crime. Okay, let's continue on the turn. Okay, high security henchman, having gone through the crucible of fire through the middle of the Soldiers of Fortune crew over the course of 3 turns, managed to limp back to the side of his boss, the ventriloquist and popped down a suspect marker. He had audacity, if you recall. I'll just pick that marker up, sorry. And that enabled him to score that paying tribute he's been carrying around since turn 1 for 2 points. If you remember, the friendly model places a suspect within 4 inches of a friendly boss in order to meet the scoring criteria there. So, also managed to purchase him a piece of black market equipment from the list. I'll just find it. Here you go. It's number 5. I'm not paying you to sit around. At the start of this model's activation, it will gain a plus 2 inches movement token and 1 free effort for the turn. Useful for a knife psycho, probably. And yeah, although there's only 1 turn left to go for it. But another suspect marker out on the board there for the Organised Crime crew. So let's carry on. I think there's only 1 model left to go for Soldiers of Fortune. It's not looking too good for them. Okay, Militia Soldier 1 activated just to finish things off. He was within 4 inches of the Dreadnought op, so he was inspired. Enabled him without audacity to move forward to here, put down a suspect marker. It's within 8 inches of Luigi Lombardo, who cannot see him or the suspect marker, so Black Ops was scored again for the Soldiers of Fortune crew. There's the text for it. We have seen this before already this game, but lovely 2 points, much needed for the Soldiers of Fortune. Right, let's conclude the turn's activations, and I think it's all Organised Crime from here on out. Okay, went with the Ventriloquist next. He had audacity, but he didn't want to move too much because he's nice and relatively safe here. He used his special ability to goad the militia soldier out of from round the corner here, and then opened up with the Tommy gun on Scarface, his ventriloquist dummy. And yes, it was very close. Despite 4 dice, if every single one of them had hit and hurt, then that would have killed the militia soldier in one fell swoop. But it wasn't to be. Only 3 of the 4 hit. It was, statistically around maybe even odds on that you do it. But yeah, it caused 3 points of blood, 3 points of stun on the militia soldier. So he's 1 off either going unconscious or dying, depending upon what sort of damage he takes next. Okay, didn't score any cards as a result of that, but lots of damage and has moved another model out of position. So let's carry on. And finally, the Tailor activated. He was inspired by the ventriloquist presence. He didn't have audacity though, but what did happen was, as further black market equipment was purchased, we were able to give him, I'll double it, number 7 there. So it gives him, if he does not have audacity, which he didn't, he may perform an additional action, but it can't be one that's a duplicate of one he's already done. So yeah, he got an extra action this turn, and will do for the next turn if he doesn't have audacity. So that's a really good piece of equipment. He activated, so first of all, we popped down a suspect marker with his freebie manipulate action from inspiration. He then moved as his 1 action and then attacked militia soldier with his I'll double it bonus. So there you go. He's only attacked 2, which is the worst you pretty much get in the game, barring rat swarms and things. But yeah, it was sufficient with the strength die and the reroll given by being in the ventriloquist gang to hit with the strength die, which caused 2 points of stun damage and KOs the militia soldier there, as you can see from the marker. And that in turn was enough to play Shakedown as a objective from the hand, 2 points. An enemy model suffers KO and is within 6 inches of 3 suspects. And yes, he's within 6 inches of a few suspect markers, one of them his own, at least 3 of the Organised Crime ones as well. So there you go. That is a pretty useful looking move there for the Organised Crime, and does conclude turn 3's activations. We're going to finish up now and go to the recount phase. Okay, during the recount phase, this is how things look, and yes, each model took off a point of stun where it could. Unsurprisingly, neither of the knocked out models managed to get back up again, so they'll be missing out the remainder of the game. I can't quite remember if I mentioned that the elite operative used the sewer marker there during the turn. He did. He had an activation. He did so. I think I might have done, but just in case I forgot, there you go. Right, let's carry on and tell you who scored what. So Killer Moth managed to survive and did remove a suspect. So recovering those scores again for Organised Crime. 3 for 3 on that one. That was I've got a feeling that's quite a lucky one for them to get this time, because it just so happens that it worked out for them. There's a couple of strokes of luck there for them. And the domination marker is within 4 inches of both of these models, so it does score for the Soldiers of Fortune as well. So both sides scoring there in their respective ways. Okay, we're going to move to the last turn now. and see who can clear up those last few points in the last scramble. Okay, the first two phases of the last turn now completed. Quite simple and straightforward really. In terms of first phase cards, once again the Moth Signal card came out for Organised Crime for 3 points. They actually chose the same piece of scenery as well, this van here. They've actually got a couple of suspect markers down around it already, so they just need to have a model and one of those suspect markers in play at the end of the turn, and they'll score the lovely 3 points. If they can get it off, that'd be great for them. And again, Domination came out of the hand for the Bane, or Soldiers of Fortune crew should I say, and they put it next to Killer Moth this time, so they need to huddle around that one, manage to outnumber opponents by the end of the turn around it. So yeah, that'd be interesting to see how they get on with that. Okay, in terms of the second phase for Audacity, Initiative, it's firmly in favour of the Organised Crime with a 6-3 win there this time, so Organised Crime finally have the initiative. And yes, in terms of who's got Audacity, all three of the Soldiers of Fortune models which are remaining active have Audacity there, so the three elite Soldiers of Fortune, handily enough, have it this time. On the Organised Crime crew, you've got Killer Moth, High Security Henchman, the Ventriloquist himself, and finally Luigi Lombardo finally getting Audacity for the game. Okay, let's see who can score those last few cards. Killer Moth activated first. He took the initiative, and because he's still got some points and things to prove. He first of all activated, he used his manipulate action to move the domination marker into the middle of the board a bit more, so it can be contested by the numerically superior Organised Crime crew. And then he moved over to here. He used his backpack to pick up the suspect marker, which is in the spot where there's one there now, and then he used his inspiration based manipulate to put another one down exactly where it was. He had to do that because proximity to other suspects meant it would have been otherwise impossible for him to pay tribute to the Ventriloquist. This is the card he's had on his profile, on his stat card for a while. Now he's put down a suspect within 4 inches of Ventriloquist. He can score that for another lovely 2 points for the Organised Crime crew. So yes, there just wasn't a way he could move to be able to do that, unfortunately for him, but that does finish off his turn. Right, Stealth Operative, you can see him in the middle of that little scrum of counters and models there, activated next. And what he did was to, first of all, he had Audacity and he was inspired by the presence of Dreadnought Op, who's the boss if you recall. He, first of all, he moved into base contact with High Security Henchman, popped down a suspect with his freebie Manipulate, which turned out to be another invasion. We've seen this a lot so far, and yep, it's the one with the counter that will count down to 0. If it does reach 0 and that suspect's still there, 2 points for Soldiers of Fortune. They're going to keep trying it until it works maybe, or they just run out of steam altogether. He then used his tactical action to attack the High Security Henchman. Thanks to the handy and sharp rules, managed to hit with every single one of his dice. As you can see, put 1 point of effort in. High Security Henchman for his part put 2 points of effort in, but it was not enough. 1 point, 2 with the strength die, and one of the other hits got through, and which was actually very lucky actually overall. And yes, did 4 points of damage to High Security Henchman, which is sufficient to finish him off. Takes him off the board just neatly. He got endurance 8 and he's just taken his 8th point of damage, so there you go. So that concludes his turn, taking models out to the last. Okay, went with the Tailor next. Actually, let's move a activation marker next to him. Right, he still had his what's it called, I'll double it thing on him, so equipment on him, so he got an extra action, this activation, because he didn't have Audacity. He was inspired by the Ventriloquist though, so first of all he used his freebie action to tactically attack the militia soldier who was knocked out, and every hit does 1 extra point of blood damage, which was sufficient to finish off said militia soldier. Doing that enabled the Organised Crime crew to play Message Job, which is a card we haven't seen yet. Easy 2 points for an enemy model removed as a casualty. As simple as that. No other caveats, nothing. It's nice to have a simple one. Right, so having done that, he moved up here and revealed the suspect marker with his inspiration based manipulate action to remove the suspect marker that was counting down as an invasion, should I say. So yes, pretty successful turn there for the Tailor. Right, let's carry on. Okay, Dreadnought up next. Sorry. Despite the fact that he's raring to go with a whole bunch of nice things to do with his hatchets, unfortunately he's going to play tactically. He moved up here with his fairly good movement of 10, and then popped down another suspect marker with his audacity, and and he played invasion again. It just keeps popping up in the hand. It keeps getting denied, so it keeps going back in the deck and keeps coming back out again. So we've seen that plenty of times. You can certainly put it there because there's enemies within 4 inches of this car here, and so yes, a 3-turn counter. We'll see if he gets through it. There are 3 models to activate still to go though, so should be okay, but we'll see if it can be denied yet again. Okay, I'll wrap up the last couple of activations just now quickly. Neither side had very much they could score at all left in their hands. The mob really needed to kill a model of the opponents, and there just wasn't anyone in killing range on their stats, so to speak, really. And yes, it was just a case of, and the mob also couldn't reach, the invasion marker, which is actually counted down to 0 now, and does score. I'll do that to show you quickly now. Yes, it's this one. Finally, they scored an invasion there. So yeah. And also the domination marker runs out, and there was nothing there. Overall, it was just played around with a football a little bit by these guys, but eventually did score for Soldiers of Fortune. So because it's within there, but I'll do that in the recount phase now. Well, I'll just show you who has scored what. Okay, and then we'll go to the final count. All right. Okay, neither side had anything to play from their hands during the final recount phase, but in terms of cards which scored, the Moth Signal did score for Organised Crime because they have plenty of suspects and plenty of models nearby that van, as they stipulated at the beginning of the turn, and the Domination marker just squeaked out in favour of the Soldiers of Fortune because they managed to just pop it in next to their own model at the end, basically, through a bit of like I said, it was a bit of a football match going on there with that marker, and they just managed to get the best of it through the way the model's activations turned out. So yes, they score that one as well. So there you go. In terms of what cards that didn't score over the course of the game, the last pinch mobster, which came up in the middle at the end there, just never really had much chance of scoring, so that does not, unfortunately, for Organised Crime. And likewise, Ozito was not recovered by Soldiers of Fortune. The Tailor was carrying it around with him, and there just wasn't quite the ability to grab it off him that they really wanted. And also, I kind of forgot about it, my mistake. Silly me. I put these visual markers out on the models and things to remind me, and I still blindly, stupidly finish without looking at them. Anyway, let's carry on. I'm going to go to the final count now, and we'll see who's won. Right then, let's see who scored what. I've got the Soldiers of Fortune pile in my hand first. Let's see. We got 2 points. Let's see if I can avoid that light reflection. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 17, 19, 22 points. Respectable enough. I've scored higher, I've scored lower. Not amazing. I think they did struggle a bit, but I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's have a look at the Organised Crime score. Suspect it might be higher, but let's find out. 3, 5, 8, 10, 13, 16, 18, 21, 24, 26, 29, 30, 31 and 33 points, so 22 to 39. That is that's a large margin of victory there for Organised Crime. I did suspect that. That was a great showing, great start of showing from this first time I've put this crew out. Well, with this deck, I have to hasten to add. But yes, the Organised Crime deck is really good fun to play, very thematic, and but doesn't feel quite so limited or like inhibited as Two Faces or maybe the Court of Owls as well. Although both decks are very fun to play as and thematic, you do feel sometimes like you're fighting uphill a little bit. This Organised Crime deck really came into its own. I think there were some key flashpoints where I got very lucky as Organised Crime with the way that the cards came out, and also how they were able to counter some of the high scoring Soldiers of Fortune things as well, just through just a few people being in the right place at the right time, or just the cards were drawn just right at the right time as well. But nonetheless, I think the Soldiers of Fortune as them, I think I can be a bit disappointed in how I handled them. Also, again, I hate to blame the deck, because it isn't just the deck. There's things you can do to mitigate deck performance in this game, and I wasn't doing it properly, but I do feel I could have done with some more beneficial draws for them. But you've got to play around that, haven't you? That's part of being a good player. You can't blame the deck. But I mean, I think this Soldiers of Fortune crew, I don't think the models I chose are particularly bad. I think it's quite a success, quite a competitive looking crew. But maybe if I was playing another game in the future, when I'm more familiar with both decks, I'd start changing cards out as well for ones which I feel would score a bit more likely and things. So I was just using both decks completely vanilla, and yes, it made for a very fun game. But you've got to, if you're playing really competitively, then you take a serious look at what you're putting in your deck as well. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed using Organised Crime. These might be my go-to crew if I start playing other people and things friendly or whatever. They're great fun, and I'd love to see what they do against the Batman deck, because it looks like a lot of their cards will directly synergize against each other. So that sounds like a fun one to do. Maybe we'll try that out very soon. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game as much as I did. I hope you enjoyed the look of it. Please give me feedback on anything that I did wrong, or anything you maybe liked or didn't like, anything I can do to improve it, even down to just like the editing or something. If there's something wrong with the videos, constructive feedback is cool and welcomed. Okay, well, you take care. I am Shield War 100. I'll see you next time.